welcome to today's 4Ps podcast. You know, if you are sick physically, it is very easy for you to find a doctor and go to that doctor. As a matter of fact, you know what? If you need something right now, if you need a doctor to see you right now, you can just get in your car and go straight to urgent care immediately, right now as we speak. However, when it comes to mental health, which is just as equally important, it is very hard to find the right person. And when you do find the right person, they kind of lump everybody up into one condition. And so today we are going to be talking to an individual who has understood that. She's a licensed social worker. Her name is Sarah O'Brien, and she is trying very hard to break that standard, to break that norm, and to bring better mental health to our nation. We'll be talking to Sarah very soon, right after this.
Do you have the next big thing? That world-changing whatchamacallit? Do you have a story to tell? You need a show-stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinet. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at webinet.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinet.
When looking for personalized details on life insurance or retirement planning without the overly aggressive sales pitch, I'm your resource. I'm Mel Kay with LifeInsuranceSafeZone.com. I will expertly address those needs without the accompanying pressure, allowing you to make an informed decision in your own time, enabling you to retire with dignity and permitting your loved ones on possibly the worst day of their lives to mourn you free from financial worries. I'm at 805-300-1769.
Welcome back to the program. You know, a couple of years ago, I had a really, really painful shoulder. And so I went to my doctor, and my doctor looked me over and said, I do not know exactly what's wrong with you. I need to send you to someone who specializes in shoulders. I go to that individual, they find out I have a torn rotator cuff, they fix the rotator cuff, and I am back, not 100%, because, you know, at my age, I don't think you'll ever will be 100% again, but I am back to at least like 92.5%, let's say. But I had to go to a specialist. And there are a lot of people who get sick physically, and they go to a specialist. You know, if you have eye issues, you're going to go to an optometrist. If you have cancer issues, you're going to go to an oncologist. If you have stomach issues, you're going to go to a gastrologist. If I'm saying that right, yeah, I think I am. You know, if you are going through something physical, there is a physical specialist for you that specializes in a certain type of physical health, and they are there to help you. Now, when it comes to mental health, yes, there are specialists that specialize in certain different fields. However, you know, with the demand of mental health and the way mental health is approached, not only society-wise, but also societal, but also financially, sometimes, you know what, you may specialize in one form of mental health, but in order for you to get paid, you go to another. Now, as a result of that, this is what happens. The person who has a mental health issue isn't properly cared for, and they are not properly treated because sometimes they are not going to and receiving the proper treatment. So today we're going to be talking to someone. Her name is Sarah O'Brien, and she is a she's licensed, and she deals with mental health. She has her own practice, and we're going to be talking to her today to see exactly what she is doing and how she is changing mental health where she lives in Virginia. We'll be right back, and we'll be right back after this. Hey, 4Ps audience. First of all, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast, The 4 Ps of You. I thoroughly enjoy doing it, and I thoroughly enjoy the feedback I get from listeners. I hope you enjoy the stories and the guests that come on this program all the time. And if you do enjoy the guests and the stories that come on this program, you will absolutely enjoy my book, The 4 Ps of You. The 4 Ps of You are a collection of stories dealing with purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. These stories are there to guide you through your journey to see exactly what you want in life. The 4 Ps of You is available on all forums. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Google Play. You can get it on Apple. You can get it anywhere you buy books. You can get it in paperback or you can get it in e-form. Please, that's the 4 Ps of You. Get it. Would love to have you read it and continue to thank you for listening to the 4 Ps podcast with Trunis Goggins.
Want a financial detective who translates your money into clear insights and understands your vision? Meet Rose Knows Bookkeeping. Free up your time and get peace of mind with accurate, up-to-date finances. Let Rose handle the numbers while you focus on success. Contact Rose Knows Bookkeeping today.
Welcome back, and we are talking today about mental health. We're talking today about entrepreneurship. And so what we have is we have an individual here today that actually covers both entrepreneurship and mental health. Sarah O'Brien, she is from the Richmond, Virginia area. She owns 2 companies, both which are called Thrive and Shine. Sarah, welcome to our program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Tress. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. You know, Sarah, before the segment started, I was talking about how a lot of individuals, and I've had a number of individuals who were in organization and work in the corporate life or work in an organizational life, and then they go in with hopes and dreams of thriving and being promoted within that company, and they had an idea of what that company or organization was going to be like, and then they realized, no, this is not what it is.
Yeah.
And I know that you went into social work exclusively trying to help others, and then you realize that there is I don't want to say a dark side, but there's a different side. And yeah, you're kind of agreeing with me. There's kind of a different side to social work and to organizational social work, and you wanted to change that. Tell us a little bit about that, Sarah.
Yeah, so I got my social work degree like 16 years ago now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. Yeah, with the idea to help people. I'd actually set out when I first went to college to be a clinical psychologist, go in, get a PhD. But my whole point with doing that was to practice, right? To practice psychotherapy with individuals. So I had a great advisor at the time that told me about clinical social work, which I'd never heard of before, and that a master's in social work and then a license in social work in the state where you practice is the finite degree to be able to independently practice, which for me was much more appealing. I'm not that into conducting research. And so that was never appealing to me. So I changed tracks and ended up here. And I started my early career in public mental health. So community services boards are maybe a term that people know. So it's public mental health agencies. I'm not exactly sure how they work in every state, but in Virginia, we have one in every locale. So it's either like every county or like a cluster of counties if they're small. And Richmond City has one that's a little bit different, but they have their own. And so I've worked at community services boards in and around Richmond City, including the one in Richmond. And systems are systems, right? And so although it is designed to help people, it also functions as a system that doesn't work very well, which in this country, none of the systems work very well. You know, we know the education system, healthcare system. And so it falls right into that. And my experience over time was, top-down hierarchy, just like every place else. So whether you're in public mental health, and it's not really about making a lot of dollars, right? It's about the county allocating dollars basically for these services that are free or very low cost for individuals. That's sort of the purpose of a community services board, is to reach the marginalized, the low income, the people that don't have access elsewhere, or they're completely uninsured and unemployed and have no income, right? It's so that they have access to mental health care. However, my experience was that it was still all about dollars, all about billing, all about this. And it doesn't feel good to work in that environment when you're working with people and, your supervisor and their supervisor, like, how many people did you see this month? How many hours did you bill for? And it's like, what about, are we helping people, or how am I doing with a caseload of 50 or 60? That was never part of it. And so after 9 years of doing that, it was like, this is going to be the case everywhere. This is going to be the case everywhere. If I work in social work, if I work in mental health for somebody else, I don't want to do that. I want to be in control of how I help people and then how I take care of myself at the same time, because it was almost impossible to do both.
Right. Now, speaking about taking care of yourself and taking care of others, you're obviously you're approaching a very bureaucratic type of, and I don't mean bureaucratic in the government sense, well, maybe in the government sense, but you're approaching a very bureaucratic system to mental health, and you're doing it, you're going at it much differently. What exactly is Rise and Thrive doing different than a standard organization that you would compete against, I guess?
Right. So for me, I'm in private practice now, so I'm almost not competing at all with community services boards, just because I am not in a position to provide service to the uninsured and the unemployed, because I'm in private practice. Mm-hmm. So I'm a private for-profit business, technically, as an individual. However, because I'm in control of everything, I can choose who I work with, where I feel like I have the most skill set, and it falls within my practice of expertise, rather than just seeing anybody and everybody they give you at a community services board job. Whether you work well with that population, whether you have a lot of skills or not, it doesn't matter. It's just like, here you are, here's your caseload, this is it. Now, I worked only with adults, so we sort of break it up between adults and children. I've never worked with children. I've only ever worked with adults. So there's that. But, a lot of times it was just, I felt ill-equipped for some of the clients. They had us doing crisis intervention work, which I had not been trained on, but they just sort of expect you to do. A lot of that feels like unethical and unsafe to me. Like if they're expecting me to practice out of scope and then holding me responsible for that patient's care, and then anytime I would raise alarm bells, right, here I am, the big loud mouth, the whistleblower, I guess, at my organization, that's like, hey, this isn't right. Hey, this isn't ethical, or hey, this isn't safe, or hey, this doesn't feel good to me. They're just like, shh, 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 shh. Like, don't, like, let's not. And so I didn't feel like I had support there either. So even though they're not supposed to be for profit, that's all that they think about. And even though I am technically a private for-profit business, that's not all that I think about. There's like a better balance in things. So I have more control over who I treat and who I see. And so that it falls within my scope of expertise. I have control over the hours I work, which having to be somewhere at 7 or 8 in the morning just is not great for me. I'm not a morning person. I like to exercise in the morning. And so I need some time to myself to sort of get myself going. And now I've set up my practice and my life so that I do that. I don't start work before 10 or 11 every day. I work a little bit later in the evening than maybe your traditional 8 to 4, 9 to 5 gig, but that works better for me, which also means like I'm in a better headspace, mental space, like alertness for the day to start seeing my clients during psychotherapy sessions. Excuse me. So I feel like I can show up better. Like I'm more present. I can be a better provider that way. And I can also like cut off my caseload, and my day where I feel like I need to. The other thing that it's really afforded me in entrepreneurship and doing a private practice is that I can make adjustments, right? When you work for somebody else, I mean, my schedule at my last job was 8:30 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Wednesdays, I worked 8:30 to 9 p.m. And Fridays, I worked 8:30 to 1. And I had no variation. Like I had to do that. So it's like, if I'm not having a good Wednesday, it doesn't matter. I have to be at work for 12 hours.
Right.
And if I, take off a personal day or call in sick on a Wednesday, that's 12 hours of vacation time that I have to take, or sick time, rather than 8 in a day because of the way my schedule was set out, right? So I got used to it. I did it for 3 years, but there was no room to have like anything else going on. Now, depending on my week or how I feel, or hormonally what's going on with me that just has like fluctuations, I can maybe, track, look ahead, pull back, have less clients to see that week. Like if I don't have as much energy, yes, all of that affects my income because I'm a for-profit business and all of my dollars come from face-to-face work with clients. And that is it. That is the life of a therapist. But I still can adjust how many people I see and how busy I am based on my capacity, and not just doing like, these are the hours, this is what you have to do, no matter how you feel, and I understand companies and agencies, they have to set it up like that. You have to have a regular schedule, but it's just so rigid. There's not enough flexibility in there. And maybe we could have a schedule that was rigid if I felt like I had supervisory support to like make adjustments or shift, or like find a way to not have to take, 12 hours of vacation time if I need to take a Wednesday off. But it just wasn't that environment either. Like it just didn't facilitate doing anything other than this very rigid structure. And I have a lot more freedom to create that structure or change that structure at any time that I need to based on my capacity. Stuff happens in my personal life that which has been the case in the last couple of years. And I've had to pull back on my caseload because I just don't have capacity to treat as many clients, and if I don't have capacity for that, then I'm not doing good work. Okay. So it's more responsible for me to pull back. And that was another thing that just felt unethical places. It was just like, I don't have capacity for this. And it does not matter. They don't care. They don't care.
That's sad because, health is complete. You have mental health, you have physical health, and physical health and mental health do work hand in hand.
Absolutely.
I've seen people who were physically unhealthy and it deals with them. It does mess with their mental health. I've seen people who were mentally unhealthy and it ultimately deals with their physical health.
Absolutely.
And so to listen to what you were talking about, how, it just becomes like a turnstile.
Yes.
It's sad. Also, and I was sitting there thinking about it as you were talking about your capacity and the way you can take it, and your stress level and your alertness and things like that. In the same case, I've had, I unfortunately have had a couple surgeries because of, I'm 53 years old and I still think I'm 23. So things break, right? And so, but with that, I've had surgeries. I've had shoulder surgeries. I had ankle surgeries, foot surgeries, And I will tell you this right now. The first thing I do when I go in as a patient, I look at the doctor and make sure he's good. I'll ask him like little questions like, hey, so how was your night last night? Did you do okay? I don't want to hear like, man, I am so tired, because you're about ready to cut me open. And
yes, sir. I totally agree with that.
But the thing is even with mental health, if you are not there, and I am trying to work something out, and you are there to give me therapy, and you're not there, you're tired or something like that, you are not, and I'm going to use this word, operating on me appropriately.
That's right.
And I'm getting back. And so I'm going to come out of there, just like if you mess up my foot or ankle, I might have to go get surgery again. But if you mess up my mental health or give me the wrong diagnosis or just throw me a pill or something like that, it messes with my mental health long term.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you bring this up, and it's actually alarming that the approach to mental health, the way you describe it, is such a turnstile, because I guess the thing is even though we are now looking at mental health a lot differently, there's still that old 1980s they'll get over it type scenario, and that's scary.
It is.
And,
And that's what it feels like, and it's like, I'm sort of like on the cusp of like old school, new school here,
Mhm.
right? Like sort of in my age, in my expertise and when I went to school and whatever. But I find some like maybe more seasoned clinicians than me are just like, this is just the way it is. Like nobody even is trying to challenge the system or make it different. They just bounce from job to job. It's a little better when you start somewhere new, but ultimately this is the same everywhere. We're overworked, we're underpaid, we're undervalued. And
Right.
that's including by my social work supervisor that was in my direct service position before they moved up to supervisor.
Wow.
So then you would think, okay, you get it. You did this before you moved up, but it's like as soon as they're in some sort of managerial or supervisor position, it's like their work self changes. It's like a culture, in management. And it's like, and I watched it with my last supervisor because I literally took over her position. I took over her caseload and they had split the teams out. And so then she got promoted to a supervisor. And the first year was really good. And then the longer I was there, the more I saw her like, subscribe to their like management style there, like what they were sort of like, I don't want to use the word grooming, but sort of like teaching,
Right.
how to supervise. And it became less personable. It felt more cold. It was less caring about me as a person. It sounded more like the higher ups from her. And it just was really noticeable. Like the more that she got into a supervisor role, the more disconnected she was from what it feels like to be a provider in direct practice, like in the cog, like you're saying, the cog in the machine. And that's what it is. And let me tell you, we would lose like a therapist, a provider, right? They would quit. This happened all the time. Turnover in these in these agencies are massive. It's insane. They're always turning over because the job conditions suck and the pay
Right.
sucks. Like this is a job I had almost 9 years of experience, a license in the field, and was still only making $46,000 a year. And this was less than 10 years ago.
Wow. And you're living, if you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, that is not good.
No,
Not good at
well,
all.
it's like not enough for anything. I have a master's degree. I have a license, which required 2,000 hours of supervised work, 200 of supervision hours, all of which I paid for out of pocket.
Yeah.
Did years of that, right? And then I'm not making any money. And then I don't have support at work. And then we lose a clinician and you tell all the other clinicians, okay, we have to absorb their caseload. So you just get more people. And
Right.
then because we're down a clinician, have to do 2 intakes a week, which means we got 2 new clients a week.
Wow.
Until they filled the position, which sometimes would take 6 months to a year. I mean, it's just like crazy. And I'm not the only one. And I say that to you and you're like, wow. And like when I was working there, people act like it's normal. Like you can't complain about it. You can't talk about how you don't have capacity for it. It's just like, this is the job. And it's like, this should not be the job. Like this should not be the way that it is.
And especially with I can see this is the job with something that is not dealing with, because if you don't do your job right, you will affect not only
the public. Exactly.
Yeah, you're going
it
to
can
affect
be
everybody.
harmful. Exactly.
Yes, and we see that on the news constantly, that people were either misdiagnosed, not treated right, or not treated accurately, steps not taken, steps skipped, and then it ends in a serious tragedy. My last question to you: you are now an entrepreneur. And a lot of entrepreneurs listen to this podcast. I do have at least once a month, I have at least one entrepreneurial story on there. But you are an entrepreneur that I'm going to ask this question because now you are looking at this from a different perspective. And that perspective is you are an entrepreneur and you are also a mental health technician, clinician. Now, I was sitting there telling you before this started that, being an entrepreneur myself and loving the fact that I have that freedom. Don't get me wrong. I do love it. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, all that other stuff. But I know that I find myself getting up in the middle of the night, and thinking about something, or not knowing when to turn it off, not knowing when to relax, going on vacation and thinking about, oh my gosh, I can do this now or whatever, and not ever leaving that. And I do know that that if you do not have the proper balance, that can affect your mental health. What advice, and I know I'm asking for some free advice here, very sorry, but what advice would you give entrepreneurs to maintain proper, healthy mental state?
You can't be on all the time. It's just impossible, you know? And I think coming from working for somebody else where I wasn't on all the time, but when I was at work, I had to be. Um, and because it was so stressful there that then I would think about it on the back end. A lot of the cases of like things that weren't safe and unethical when I was working for other people would creep up in my non-work time. And so once I moved to entrepreneurship, there was less of that because I had more control over those things. It was a work in progress, you know, like I didn't figure out the balance right away because I was also used to like being in the cog, right? Like we're talking about. And so especially when I first started my practice, you want to make yourself available to clients. So you end up working like weird hours or late in the evening a lot of time. And I did that for a little while and just found that was not going to work, you know? And I really just have to hold tight to when I like close my computer at the end of the day or whatever that I'm done. Like I don't go back and look at work stuff. You know, for me, it's typically about 10 to 6 are the hours I work. And then I go to bed pretty early between 9 and 10 every night. So that like 3-ish hours is all I have for like, you know, dinner, time with my family, relaxation, catching up, doing some things I enjoy or a little bit of my hobbies in the evening just to reset. So that is something I have learned that I need to do. So I cut off at the end of the day so that I can, you know, have time to eat my food and not be doing something else, have time to like play with my dogs or sit and listen to music, have time. I spend at least 15 minutes every day doing something I want to do or something creative. It's good for my brain. I like to color, work in my bullet journal, make jewelry, just like nothing that goes anywhere or does anything, but it's just good for me to use the other part of my brain and do something interesting, exciting that has colors in it. You know, like for me, that's good. So I do that every day to almost every day to some degree so that every day just doesn't feel like, you know, eat, sleep, work, rinse, repeat. Okay. That as an entrepreneur, that part of the freedom, you know, that you're saying is that and I've really tried to work on this in the last couple of years specifically, that I enjoy every day of my life. You know, as a person that comes from a traumatic childhood and lots of other trauma and my own mental health issues, you know, having something every day that I enjoy about every day means I enjoy more of my life and that my whole life is not just work, but that's part of my Monday as well as my exercise, my walk with my dog, my creative time in the evening, my time with music and dinner and all the things I do to like unwind and stuff is a part of my everyday. I could work all the time. I'd make a lot more money if I did in a lot of ways, but I would not be effective. Like we've already talked about that. Like not even just with my patients. I do other work. I write, I consult, I speak. You know, I have to have time for those things, space, creative space to write blogs, write articles, write book chapters, write all of those things. I could be doing that all the time. I do not do those things in the evening. Occasionally I work like 4 or 5 hours on Saturday because I don't work in the evening. And sometimes I just need like a good chunk of time. Now, let me be clear. I don't see clients on Saturdays, but it might be a time I'm doing writing or something else that I enjoy or creating content, doing my own marketing, that kind of thing, just so that I have some creative space where there's nothing else going on. So honestly, it doesn't really feel like work for me on Saturday. A lot of times it's fun. But that's it, you know, like, and this year specifically, I set out. I don't know if you heard at the beginning of the year, people maybe instead of talking about New Year's resolutions, they were giving a word of the year Did you hear that at the beginning of
Yes.
this year? Okay. So I really like that as something different. I never do resolutions anyways. Like we know they don't work, so I don't even bother. But I really like the word of the year thing. So my word of the year this year is realigned. And so I am trying to find realignment in everything in my life. And so part of my realignment that I've been, I guess you could call it a resolution, but part of my realignment for this year is to never work on Sundays. And so that I have like one full day of like rest or whatever I need in the week. And I have done a really good job of sticking to that as I set that out this year. And so I am noticing as I've created more pockets of space for things that I enjoy and having like a firm cutoff point, at the end of the day and a firm cutoff point at the end of the week, leaves me space to then kind of close down all those windows in my brain too, and like open up the windows for like creativity and the other parts of like my life and fun and just, being who I am, like in my family, whatever, not having to be the professional self, to some degree. And it's been really beneficial. My mood has been better. My outlook is better, feeling probably it's linked to like more positive mindset, which helps with the outlook because it just doesn't feel like eat, sleep, work, rinse, repeat, like, and that's what it felt like when I was working at agency jobs. There's almost no time by the time I commute there, commute back, spend all the, it's just like, I'm exhausted then. I don't even want to exercise or do anything else, but sort of creating a better balance sort of leaves room for everything for me. And the ability to be present in the thing I'm doing, which is what I've really set out to do more of, which means I can't work all the time because I just can't be present in that all the time. Your brain gets tired. Decision-making gets tired. Like effective decision-making just starts to wane. Like for me, at the end of the day, it's like, no, I need to take a break and come back to this later when I'm fresher. Like it's not going to be a good decision right now. And so I have to create some space for that. And I have found that I'm less emotional, less reactive. I can come to things maybe more systematically, especially when like making decisions. I can think more clearly about stuff. Like all of that has been a result of having clear boundaries between when I work and when I don't work, when I do other things that are not work and the other parts of my life.
That is superb advice for entrepreneurs. Cut it off at a certain time and make sure that is cut off. And make sure, and I'm going to add this, even though I am not a mental health clinician like you are, but I will say this, make sure that you take vacations. Take a couple of days where you totally cut it off. And that could be a vacation sitting on your couch, but take that time. We will be right back right after this. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show. I totally appreciate it. And again, I will have more information about Sarah and her practice in the podcast notes, and we'll be right back right after this.
Stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinet. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at webinet.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinet.
The podcast, The 4 Ps of You. I thoroughly enjoy doing it, and I thoroughly enjoy the feedback I get from listeners. I hope you enjoy the stories and the guests that come on this program all the time. And if you do enjoy the guests and the stories that come on this program, you will absolutely enjoy my book, The 4 Ps of You. The 4 Ps of You are a collection of stories dealing with purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. These stories are there to guide you through your journey to see exactly what you want in life. The 4 Ps of You is available on all forums. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Google Play. You can get it on Apple. You can get it anywhere you buy books. You can get it in paperback or you can get it in e-form. Please, that's the 4 Ps of You. Get it. Would love to have you read it and continue to thank you for listening to the 4 Ps podcast with Trunis Goggins. Welcome back to the program, and I hope you enjoyed, I don't want to say enjoyed, I hope you enjoyed it too, but I hope you did get something very valuable out of the interview that we had with Sarah O'Brien. One thing that this show will always do is we will take the whole person approach. Yes, I want you to find your purpose. I want you to plan properly. I want you to have a passion in what you do. And I want you to be persistent when things get tough, when obstacles get in the way. But on the other thing the other thing I want you to do is I want you to take care of yourself. I want you to take care of yourself physically as well as mentally. And I'm going to tell you, those two things are equal. Because you know what? If one's out of whack, the other one's going to be out of whack. You need to be totally balanced. In Christianity, they talk of the Trinity, where you have the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. In yourself, you have a Trinity as well. Now, I'm not talking about a divine Trinity, so don't think, oh my gosh, he's being blasphemous. That's not what I'm being. What I'm saying is you do have a spiritual aspect to yourself. Okay. And however you deal with that, you deal with that. And then you also have the mental aspect of yourself, and you have the physical aspect of yourself. There are three pieces that run in harmony to make sure that you are the complete person. And you need to take care of all three of those things. And one thing that I will talk about and I will stress is the importance of keeping all of those as balanced as possible. And one thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that you have mental health, because mental health does lead to bad physical health, and bad physical health will eventually lead to bad mental health. So you absolutely want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself in all three facets. And so if you want to have any more information and you want to talk about, mental health, I will have Sarah's contact information in the podcast notes. If you need to find mental health and you need to find mental health help, please make sure, if you want to just go to see somebody, go seek it out. Okay. Go seek out, go see a doctor, go see a counselor, there's nothing wrong with that, because you know what? We all go through our problems physically, mentally, and spiritually. We all go through different issues. And at some point, at one of those three things need to get professional attention. It really does. We're going to be back. We are getting closer and closer to getting back on track, catching up with the things that were going on with Hurricane Helene. Speaking of Hurricane Helene, next week we are going to have a special podcast eastern North Carolina and in eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina. I know my geography. We are going to be talking about, the things that are still needed in this area. I know that we have a lot of national attention, international attention, and, we are recovering. We're recovering in this area every day. This is a very, very strong area, and there are a lot of strong people here, more so than not, and we are recovering. But you know what? We still want to tell you what we want you to do, or what we need you to do, and what you can do to help out here. One thing that we want you to do, please come back. Please come back, visit. This is a great tourist area, still a great place. Please, please, please come back. Come back as soon as possible. I know that I had to take a drive today. The leaves look beautiful in the mountains. It's very pretty. Come back, and the weather is still like super warm. All right. Matter of fact, we're still in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's unbelievable at this time of year. So come back and enjoy yourself. We will be talking to you again next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.